So here's the plane and the knob that goes on it, and that's not very impressive. I'd like to find a better profile. I have this old number 110 where this knob is a little bigger, and I think this bigger knob looks more in proportion, looks a little better, a little easier to use, but I'm still thinking maybe something a little bit bigger might be better. I have this knob that came off an old number 3, and that really looks entirely too big, so I don't think that's a good size. And I have a number 2, but it's a high knob, and I'm not going to take it off, but I think that would look a little ridiculous. I did look around for other various knobs that I had, and here's a cabinet knob, which is about the same size and shape as this guy, a little bigger than this guy. So this might be something I could take some clues from. And I have this number 45, this cute little rosewood knob on it. Careful with that. And it's actually the same threads. Kind of happy coincidence. And I think in general that looks a little too big. So I don't really have a good pattern that I think looks good. What I think I'm going to do is probably use this as a pattern and try to make it, I don't know, 10-15% larger. So here are the 3 knobs on the 3 similar block planes. Again, this goes to a number 3. And I do kind of like profile. In the narrow waist does seem a little large. So I think kind of combining this profile with something sort of between this size and these two. And if you make it bigger, you can always make it a little smaller. I think that's the route I'm going to take. And I did experiment. I have a threaded insert, and if you look at it, the threads look reasonably similar, about the same pitch. And I did crack this block of wood, so I've learned to drill the hole a little bit larger, but it does screw on. I think we're ready to roll. I want to drill this about the height of this insert. So the technique is you get it to engage about there, lock it in place, and then lock them together, and that'll get me close enough for government work. I thought about setting up something on my table saw or chop saw or one of my other saws to make this cut, but they all seem pretty dangerous. Well, there's my hand planed octagon. It may have seemed tedious, but it only took a few minutes to hand plane this into this shape, and probably would have been quicker than trying to set something up on a saw. I have a nut jammed onto the threaded insert, and it's threaded in. Chuck it up. So this is where I'm at. Part of the reason why these things take so long. I just realized that this little plastic knob is narrow down here because this plane has a little ledge here. I had clamped a wooden square to the table of my drill press, and using an old chisel I was able to use that as a tool, and it gave me a lot more control. I cut a section of copper pipe off of this guy, and I'm going to use that to form a little ferrule around the bottom of the knob for strength. And for the second time in as many attempts, this came out a lot looser than I wanted because I forgot to compensate for the fact that there's a lip on the inside of these pipes. Oh well, the epoxy will fill the gap. Just have a little brown dye here. Looks black, but brown, and I still used way too much. It still looks black. That's alright. Well, here it is. I think it came out pretty awesome. Took me about an afternoon, but I was doing other things at the same time. Not only that, but setting up the camera for every shot. A couple things I learned turning this thing is I put a fence on my drill press to help steady the tool. I also used a chisel to do some cutting instead of just files. And I need to be more careful when I'm setting up to take a ferrule. Going to use boiled linseed oil because that's what I have. And trying to use it. I'm going to put a generous amount in the threads first. Give that a few minutes to set up. And I will do the outside. Well, here it is, finished and installed. It's not quite dry, but it's getting a little impatient. And I think it's handsome. Maybe a little too nice looking for the plane. It's kind of funny, now that I'm looking at it, the fact that that's mahogany doesn't really match the rest of the plane, and the copper doesn't really match the brass. So, oh well, chalk it up to experience, and maybe I'll make another one as time goes on, but at the moment I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it's a little more functional than that cheesy plastic thing that came on it. And for comparison, here's the cheesy plastic knob that it came with. And there's the new knob. And back with the new knob on, and the cheesy plastic knob next to it for comparison. And I can put the plastic knob on this red plane, which will make that one a little more whole. Well, I appreciate you coming by my shop and seeing what I'm up to. If it's your first time here or you've been here several times, I welcome you. You know, it's funny, it took me probably about 6 months to figure out a procedure to make this knob. Wasn't quite sure how to turn it, and I solved that problem using my drill press a while ago. And I wasn't quite sure what to do about cutting the threads till I discovered those threaded inserts were reasonably similar. So I gave it a shot, and I think it came out pretty good. Well, let me know what you think. If you have any comments, leave them below. I'd love to read them. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe. And I thank you again for coming by. And I look forward to catching up with you on the next one.